All right, we're here. This is not exactly how I thought. I didn't think I would be leaning into a microphone like this. So we're going to kind of pass this back and forth because it's going to be the easiest way. But we are here for the second episode of the Yoga Pod podcast. I almost said the wrong thing. Yeah, it happens frequently. I apologize for being late. We're a few minutes late, but it happens. That's right. You know? Technical difficulties, but we had a great response to the first one. Anybody that's out there watching, you can go and share down here somewhere. There's a little share button. You can like it. So anything that you can do to help us kind of promote this is great. You know, we're trying to promote and kind of help out the community of YogaPod and yogis in general. And so we're trying to have guests on that would help us do that. But I also want to just kind of go over what happened since the last episode. Lise, you're going to be the one that's going to kind of talk about that, just in terms of the success of the last episode and that sort of thing.
So we're just so thankful because we have such a robust community of people that are so supportive and so loving. And Fort Collins is a really unique place because as we talked about last time, there's so many fitness concepts and there's so many yoga studios, but everybody is so supportive and so loving. And it was fascinating because I got a lot of questions from the last episode. Just, like asking more about, little nuggets that we've spoken about. And that's what I'm so excited for this, series, to be able to dig into that a little deeper and answer some of these deeper questions. So continue to let us know what questions you might have or curiosities about yoga. And that's what we're here for. So thank you, all of you, for your support.
Yeah, I feel like I didn't get any questions, but I will say the one win that was kind of astounding for me is my wife actually watched it. She's never watched anything that I've ever done. So, but she was interested. She said it was entertaining, etc. So that's a good thing. I want to introduce our guest, Kyle Larson.
Hello.
A teacher of a very good reputation. I remember when you were teaching at another studio and my wife had gone to a couple of your classes and was like, you have to take some classes from Kyle. And I think that comes from probably having a lot of experience, but also having a lot of different experiences with yoga in particular. You're not, your journey to yoga was very different than a lot of other people's. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. All right. Did I talk directly?
Yes, talk directly into it, but don't push that button.
Oh,
yeah.
No,
don't push the mute. Don't push the mute button.
Cool. Sure. So I came to yoga accidentally. I led an incredibly unhealthy lifestyle. And I smoked a lot and I drank a lot.
I can't imagine that somehow.
Yeah. And I was trying to quit smoking primarily. So I had taken up jogging, which I found tremendously unpleasant. So I was jogging on a treadmill and listening to this. It was like on KRFC. It was a sports, like an alternative sports radio show. That was fun. And they had the owner of the Bikram Yoga Studio in Old Town.
Okay.
She said, anybody can call in and say what yoga means. I'll give you a free 60 days. So I went home.
When was this?
Oh,
give a time.
2006, January of 2006.
Okay.
So I went home and I looked it up, and yoga means to yoke or unite. So I called in and I was like, there's no way, because it took me time to get home, right? But there was a way. I was one of two people that called. I won free 63 days. And here was the catch. So it was 60 free days, but only if you went every day for 60 days. And if you went every day for 60 days, you won for a year.
Every day? What time were the classes offered? Like that you could just
so it was
make sure you showed up?
It was just a Bikram studio. There were, I think, 5 classes a day, 7 a.m., 10 a.m. And then they had afternoon and evening classes. I
Okay.
was really fortunate because I worked in Old Town, somewhere where they didn't mind if I went and took a class and then came back for the rest of the day. So
Wow.
yeah,
I want that job.
I know, right?
it's pretty sweet. It was pretty sweet.
Don't you have that job, Ken?
Oh yeah, I guess.
Yeah, it's a sweet
I've just
job,
got a
huh?
jerk.
I mean-
I've just got a jerk for a boss.
Aren't you
That's sad.
self-employed?
Yes, exactly.
okay, yeah.
That guy's terrible. I did not have a jerk for a boss. I had a lovely boss. And she allowed me to do yoga. And after 60 days, I did not like it at all. So my first class was a hot class, of course. And I was wearing pants and a long sleeve shirt.
Oh.
Jeans? Were they jeans?
No, they were running
Oh, okay.
pants because, I had taken up running. That's, I use that loosely. I'm
Okay.
really taken up running. So I was wearing running pants and a long sleeve shirt. It was miserable. But after that class, I thought, well, this is intriguing and I don't want to smoke. So I did it every day for 60 days. I was pretty convinced that after the 60 days, I would never, ever go back to yoga. And we had a trade show coming up in Austin. So the 60 days ended, I went to Austin and started doing the series in a bathroom because I missed it so much.
No way.
Yeah. So I steamed up the bathroom in my hotel room and just did the series on
What?
my own. Yeah. Yeah, so it was kind of insidious. I hated it. And then I couldn't, my body didn't like to not do it.
Wow.
So I went back and I did the full year. That's how I came into it. Yeah.
So was it the physical practice, obviously, that your body was craving? What was going on in your mind during that time?
So this was the first time in my life that I had done anything that was physical in my body. I mean, I was a drummer, so I played, so that was physical, but I never paid attention to what my body was doing when I played drums. So yoga was the first time I started paying attention to what my body was doing. And it was shocking how much pain I was in. So realizing that not only was I in pain, but then certain muscular engagements and moving through the pain helped not be in pain anymore and open up new things that I didn't know my body could do. And that became really fascinating to me. So for a long time, I would say for probably a majority of my time as a practitioner, it's been an entirely physical practice. I approached it physically. The benefits I thought about were physical. That was really all I cared about, was the feeling nice. The emotional benefits were sneaky, and they came up much later. But the physical push for the practice was initially I was drawn to it because it made me feel things. And I had numbed myself out up to that point in my life. It's late 20s. And I had never really connected with my body, so it was profound.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what in that 60 days, like what were some of the things that happened to you physically? Because I did a 30-day challenge and I was like, it's just a little much. But I can't imagine what happens kind of after 60 days,
Sure.
Other than being like completely obsessed afterwards.
Yeah. One of the first things I noticed was I could tie my shoes without bending my knees. That was cool. My back stopped hurting so much. I think particularly the hot series with so much core engagement, you're really protecting the low spine. So my back stopped hurting so much. The round in my back. So when I play drums, I go like this, yeah. So I'd given myself a little humpback. So that started to go away. What was shocking was that I was bruised. So my entire spine, from where like muscles were separating from bone, had bruised.
Wow.
And that lasted probably for the first year that I did the practice.
What?
Like weird bruises would pop up. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I mean, it was cool.
I guess.
It's cool because it was your body, like a physical manifestation of your body changing. You can see it on the outside, like, oh, this is getting different, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's really interesting. So what do you think? Yeah, I don't know if we're going to keep going back and forth with this, but we'll try. So what do you think, those physical things happen, but what do you think it was that made you go and actually go into a hotel room? Because I'd like to say that something similar didn't happen to me, but it did. I mean, like when I'm traveling now, I will go and find a Bikram studio, even if it's 45 minutes away, because I know for me, like that, the mental and physical well-being, as well as just kind of the travel and the back issues and all that stuff, it far outweighs the 3 hours that I'm going to end up spending trying to go do this. What do you think it was that kind of got you obsessed, so to speak, with it?
Yeah, I think I was tired of feeling anxious. So the job that I was in at the time, I was the point of contact for everyone who would come to these trade shows. So they would come up to the front desk and I would be there and I would say hello, and it was a lot of interacting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think being able to lock myself in that bathroom and steam it out and just breathe
Mm-hmm.
was the best way for me to calm myself down. And I think that translates. That was so much of what was attractive to me as I continued with the practice.
Mm-hmm.
Through a divorce and lots of unpleasantries in life. This yoga, when you step into a hot room and those doors close, and the teacher tells you to stand on the line and put your toes and heels together, it becomes meditative immediately, like nothing else is happening. So it's like you've stepped into a sanctuary. There's nothing that's happening outside is happening anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that's happening is you're breathing and moving and holding postures, and it's
Sure.
yeah. So I think that's what it was.
So Kyle, you talk about, your past and unpleasantries. And anybody that knows Kyle, he's the kindest, gentlest, if that's a word, most gentle human. And, you shared a few bits with me that's not always how you've been.
No, it is through great effort. And I credit the yoga entirely with that. So I think my default reaction to everything is no. My default reaction to everything is aggressive. Right? So,
still today.
Yeah. So anytime I'm confronted with anything, my initial reaction is probably to be an asshole. And it's and it takes a lot of effort for me to step back and think, what's the appropriate way to respond to this? And yoga and meditation have helped me. These are the emotional benefits that just happened. I didn't mean for them to. I'm happy that they did, but they provide this space. So
like a buffer almost. Yeah.
So it's almost like it's not like you're taking more time, but it's like in between action and reaction, there's like a buffer,
Mm-hmm.
and then I can not be a dick. And I think that it's become really fascinating because I'm trying to really winnow it down to like the smallest parts of my personality. So before I say things like, what's motivating you to say this? And before I do things, what's motivating me to do this? And I think just pausing and taking that space has allowed me to embrace something. Always lurking underneath. I've always been a nice guy. Like I always had a lot of friends and people get along with me, but there was a darkness, and that darkness still exists. But I think the yoga has allowed me to transcend that and to tamp it down in ways that I didn't have the tools to do it.
So what do you say that there's a darkness?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think created that?
Well, I think certainly part of it is genetic. My dad was incredibly aggressive. And slightly abusive, and he took off when I was young, and then there was kind of an absence of any male figure in my life. So I stumped through and became kind of a model of my father. So, it's terrible to talk about. I was so mean to my mom. No. I mean, I was so mean to my mom. Like in ways I know that people are like, no, everybody's mean to their parents. No, I was awful, like, but dreadful. Became a ward of the state when I was 15, and then I moved into the independent living program when I was 16. So really, I've kind of tried to figure out how to be a man and how to be an adult on my own with no real guidance. And I think the first time that anyone ever told me, like, you're full of shit, was Bikram. And I think a lot of people look at Bikram talking to people like that and they think, oh, he's such a terrible person. How can you talk to people like that? But I think, no, man, if he hadn't have told me that, I wouldn't have known. Nobody ever told me I was full of shit. So,
Wow.
So having somebody call me out on that, and then to follow that up with, I will fix you. That was incredible. And those 10 weeks moved me in ways that I don't think anything has before or after the 10 weeks of teacher training. So I kind of went off topic.
No, that's great, because I think it's fascinating, the whole process of the 10-week teacher training, because it's not, today, like, for example, YogaPod, we have our fall teacher training that begins, which Kyle is one of the co-leads. So side note right there. But the teacher training you went to is different because it's all day, every day. Can you share a little bit about that experience and like what that looked like? What's the schedule? What was the expectation?
Yeah. Oh, it was incredibly structured. So we had a class first thing in the morning. I think it was at 8. I want to say 7 because I want it to be harder than it was, but I believe it was at 8.
And where were you?
We were in Palm Springs, California.
And then
At a hotel.
how many years ago was this?
This was 2009.
Okay.
There were about 400 people in my training. We were at a hotel at a Marriott.
And that's like kind of almost at the pinnacle of his power, right?
Yes, yeah.
I mean,
so this is pre-sexual assault allegations.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was there almost the entirety of our training. He left to go to Los Angeles a few times, but mostly he was there.
Mhm.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. No, I think it's just important that we get a little bit of context, for people who don't know.
Yeah, we spent pretty much every day with Bikram. So we'd have a class at 8 that he would not teach because he doesn't teach the morning classes. That would be followed by posture clinics or lectures. Then we'd have a short lunch. Then we'd reconvene for posture clinics. Then we do lectures, then another class, and then we meet again for posture clinics or lectures. Bikram would talk until 2 or 3 in the morning, and then he'd put in Bollywood movies. So yeah, we watched. So it was
like
Indian,
boot camp.
Oh my God, it was an Indian serialized version of the Mahabharata that was all in Hindi, and there was singing and dancing. It was everything you'd expect every night.
Every night for 10 weeks.
Yeah. Well, not Sundays or Saturdays, which was nice, but Monday through Friday.
Holy shit. Yeah. So you're doing 2 90-minute hot classes a day.
Monday through Friday.
Monday
and then
through
just
Friday.
one on Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then you're in posture clinics all day, which is emotional. Draining because you're talking, you're learning Sanskrit. It's like, it's demanding.
Yeah.
And
and you're holding the postures while people talk through.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
And then
I feel like you've had that experience.
yeah.
Are we going to be in this forever?
Yes. And
Yes,
then you
we
have to
are.
watch these Bollywood movies.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we would try and fall asleep, and staff would come around and poke us. And I remember thinking, like, I'm a 30-year-old man. Don't poke me. I'm trying to sleep. But, it was good. I feel like the process that they had there.
It was good.
It was good.
In what way was it good? I mean, because so the interesting thing about this is that I do believe that people learn through adversity, right? And that there is a piece of our culture these days that kind of we try to skirt around that, right? We try to make everybody wants to be as comfortable as possible, right? We don't want to be called out on our shit, right? We don't want to be uncomfortable physically. We don't want to be too hot. We don't want to be too cold. We don't want to be too angry. We don't want to be too sad. Like there are just a lot of things. And I think that one of the things that happens is we lose kind of that primal nature, and so don't you think that by going through some of that at, a 10-week teacher training, with people poking you in the middle of the night, don't you think that brought out something different? And I don't want to equate it to like going into the army or having like some life-changing experience in terms of, life-threatening, but it was transformative, right?
Yeah. And I think that sums up the Bikram approach to yoga entirely. It instilled discipline in us. I mean, we were being disciplined. We're being taught to stay awake and to pay attention and to do what you're instructed to do, which I don't think is a good idea as a blanket statement. But when you've engaged in a training, trusting that
thousands of dollars for as well,
I think
right?
it was like 15 all told.
15.
Well,
$1,000.
that was with eating and stuff. I think it was only 10 for the training itself, and that included room and one meal. So
Oh my gosh.
lunch. Had a lot of pineapple there.
Well, somebody has to pay for the Bentley.
Yeah, totally.
The Rolls Royce.
Several
right?
Bentleys.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. Does he still have those? Yeah, they went to India. And that 30 to 30 podcast. How they said went to India. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. But I think that the whole approach was discipline. Was this is what you signed on for, so shut up and do it. And when all of the options were taken away, all the choices are taken away. This is why I think there's no props in a Bikram class, because all you're doing is what you're told to do. Just stop thinking about it. Lock your knee and push your hips forward. Don't think about it, just stretch. Don't, you know, so I think that was their whole approach. The whole approach to training was stop pretending like you have any sort of control. Stop pretending like you get to decide whether this is good or bad. Just be quiet and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And coming out of that, I think you come out of it with a discipline and a focus that I had never had before.
Sure. It also a little bit of an edge.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
To your practice, but also your teaching
Yes.
style compared to a lot of other yoga instructors out there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I don't embrace as much of the do whatever you feel. It's more of this is the posture. So this is how we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and there's something freeing about that.
Yeah.
To be told what to do.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know, we have so many freedoms. You know, so many different things you can do, and most of us have jobs that are somewhat creative. I mean, there's a lot of decisions to be made constantly. Yes. Even if it's as mundane as where I'm going to stop for gas or things like that, you're still making those decisions. And so there's moments when you're in the hot room that somebody's just telling you exactly what to do. I don't have to make any decisions. I just have to do it.
Yeah.
And that's a special kind of freedom in some sense.
I think it is, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the reason that it's a special kind of freedom is that it teaches you how to not attach preference to your experience. So you're just experiencing, you're just doing what you're told. You're not thinking like, oh, I like this, or I don't like this, or it's too hot. You're just pushing your hips forward and lifting your chest and gazing to the back wall, right? So your belief about how your body should respond and your belief about how you should feel in a hot room when it's hard to breathe are irrelevant, because your body will do it if you just tell your body to do it. Just do it, and it will.
But we as people, you know, end up having so many kind of tapes that we go through in our heads of what we can and can't do.
Yeah.
You know, and so a lot of times, at least my experience is, you know, going through, you know, Bikram and having that experience is that it took me kind of having to think about those postures, right? Mm-hmm. And then getting to a point where, okay, I don't have to think about this anymore.
Yeah.
And then really being able to let go and do a lot of, you know, they said the same thing over and over again, however many times. Like it's not, it doesn't change.
Yeah.
But I heard it in a different way once I was able to kind of, you know, get some semblance of the postures. And I think that's what helps with kind of the repetition of it. So kind of just moving slightly into kind of present day.
Sure.
What was it like to go from, because I'm assuming you taught Bikram.
Yeah,
right?
at several studios for 3 years.
Okay.
Full time. Yeah.
So what was it like going from that to, I don't want to say a watered down version, but an hour version of something that you had so much passion about, you know, like this is the way that it's done. And so what did that do to you? Sure. Right? And then how did you kind of adapt to that?
Yeah, well, let me preface this response by saying I have immense respect and appreciation for the owners of Bikram Yoga Old Town and Bikram Yoga Greeley. But there was a falling out. And when there was a falling out at the Old Town studio, I separated from the community. And I think when I separated from the community, part of that separation included me wanting nothing at all to do with Bikram. So shortly thereafter, the sexual assault allegations came through, and that was like justification to me. And I was like, yeah, I made the right decision, and Bikram is awful. And so teaching a watered down version felt natural to me, because I thought like, yeah, Bikram's too hard. We got to be soft. This is, you know, our approach has been wrong this whole time. I have since come around to not thinking like that.
Yeah.
Because I watched people practice for several years and never, ever advance. Just doing the same practice over and over again, and they never get better. And in fact, they seem to get worse, and knees are bending more, and people are getting lazier, and they're getting, you know, sloppier. Mm-hmm. And then you think, like, you're going to injure yourself, man. So then I revisited the Bikram dialogue, and reading through it, I was like, holy crap, it's perfect. Everything about this is perfect. So I've returned to that kind of style of teaching, coming to it from a position of strength, more muscle engagement cues, just sticking with physical cues. Mm-hmm. Did I get off topic?
No, not at all. No, I mean, it makes perfect sense, to me, because that's how I really kind of got into yoga was through Bikram. I mean, I had done some other, probably flow classes, or I don't even know what they were, but they weren't for me. But once I went to Bikram, I had that similar experience in that, like, I hate this, and at the same time, like, but my body loves this in a sense.
Yeah.
And what I found was with that hour class, with those 60 minutes, I feel a lot less tired. Right. And I also have, like, hydration isn't like my pure focus for that day.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, that's basically what happens. I would go to the early class, which was whatever, 5:30 or 6:30 or whatever it was in the morning. And then it was like until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm like, how can I get electrolytes and salt and water into my body? Like, cause I'm just you're just obsessed with it. I can't drink coffee because it's like, it's ridiculous, and it's not, it doesn't become a part of your life. It is your life,
Yeah.
And I feel like, those 60-minute classes are a lot more, just, it leaves a lot more to do during the day other than just that. It's not like, okay, my day is gone.
Yeah. I think the 60-minute class is fantastic. First of all, the heat at YogaPod is on point. I have never practiced in a studio with heat that's so phenomenal.
Well, it should be for the $150,000 that we had to invest in the HVAC system.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, with
not just some humidifiers and little space heaters.
No, it's not.
and that's standard. Like, humidifiers, little space heaters in a Bikram studio, that's totally normal. So I think our 60-minute classes, we're able to bring in a significant amount of heat, which changes things. And I actually think 60 minutes is harder. And here's why.
So hard.
Yeah. When I do a 90-minute class, first set is all muscling into it and strength. And second set, I'm just kind of relaxing into it. So you get these 30-second kind of breaks. Well, you're in the posture, right? You're engaged, but you've already been engaged in it once. So it's not new muscular engagement. You're just kind of sitting in it. So you get that second set to kind of just breathe and relax.
Oh, that's so not the way I look at it, but okay, that's so interesting. Yeah.
So for me, when you're doing just first sets, it's like strength posture, strength posture, strength posture, strength posture, strength posture. And then by the time we hit, a hot triangle, I'm like, what's happening?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's not exactly what I say in my head, but it's something similar to that.
Yeah. And that's when you get to practice. That's when you get to practice the breathing and think like, I don't need to determine whether or not I find this pleasant. I just need to do triangle.
Yeah.
Well, and it's fascinating. So both, Ken and Kyle have taken my class. So I've watched them practice. And for those of you who can't see the video, I mean, they're both fully tattooed. Okay.
I'm not nowhere near fully tattooed.
I mean, there's a lot of tattoos. Okay. I mean, they're very masculine. I mean, the hot practice, I mean, there's a lot of masculine postures in it. It's like your chest is like strong. And I mean, it is. It's not like a vinyasa where it's, there's more flowing and there's more rounding and all these things like that. And so it's fascinating to watch men do this practice who are so strong and tattooed in it. And I mean, it crushes you. The heat will crush you. And emotionally to watch people struggle through that is really fascinating. But both of you, I think, crave that, overcoming that obstacle, and enduring through that. There's some type of reward for you.
I think there's a huge physical payoff about an hour to 2 hours after you take a hot class. So you're going to be exhausted while you're in it, and it's hard and it's difficult to breathe. And then afterwards, you're going to take a shower, and it doesn't matter. You're going to continue to sweat for a couple hours. And sometimes, like, my legs will fail to fire when I'm trying to walk, or have a hard time getting into my car. But then 2 hours later, you're sitting down and I'm eating a sandwich, and you stand up and you think, holy crap, I feel amazing. That's what it is. And I think I've practiced a lot of different types of yoga, and I love all different types of yoga. But the hot series is the only one that I have had that kind of profound release a few hours afterwards. So I think it's some magic. I think there's so many brilliant things about the series, but one of them is that I think it's designed to exhaust and challenge you so that you feel amazing later on. Bikram used to say you can torture yourself for your whole life or for 90 minutes. It's your choice.
And that's, I mean, that speaks so much to kind of what you were talking about previously about, kind of the darkness, right? So you're talking about something that I believe everybody experiences, at least men have to one extent or another. And I think that by going through that process of having that physical challenge and getting to the other side of it, for some people, it's going and swimming, right? They go and they swim for 45 minutes, they come out and they go, wow, that's, I feel different. For me, going in there and having that experience and then coming out the other side and being like, okay, I'm not whatever the numerous things that I might have going through in my head about myself. Those things just kind of get pushed aside, and it's like, oh, I'm just this. This is all because you get so connected with who you are physically that emotionally there's some like kind of there's some switch that's flipped. And I don't know if that happens with women. Like what's your experience with hot? Because I mean, we've talked about why it's so attractive to men and why like we think, and I'll end with this, but because I want to get to your opinion, but yesterday there was I was listening to Joe Rogan, right? And he's a UFC announcer, tough guy, whatever. And he was talking to Henry Rollins, one of I've right over there, his signature. Anyway, awesome. Yeah. And so two tough guys, right? And Joe is trying to convince Henry to go do Bikram. I mean, he's like, you don't understand. I actually have it queued up on my phone so we can listen to it afterwards. But he's like, you don't understand. Like, this is what you need. Like, this is what's going to get you to where you want to be. And he's like, I don't know. It's just it's a fascinating conversation because I don't think a lot of people out there, especially men, understand what happens when you get that challenge. But I'm more curious because like Mary, it has no real appeal to her. Like I'm like, hey, let's go to hot. And she's like, not my thing. But you seem to really embrace it and enjoy teaching it, enjoy practicing it. Why is that?
So first of all, I think for so many women, there's so many challenges that we already face that feel insurmountable. I mean, you think about even childbirth. Okay, so that's that same type of experience. And I know it's weird to akin a hot class to childbirth, but it's like you really think you're going to die. I mean, your body feels like it's being ripped apart and you're going to die. And so we already get that experience, right? And then being, especially I think today, like I think about Mary, and she is a very well-educated professional who's successful, but she's a mom, and that's a whole nother ball of wax where you're trying to take care of these other humans and you're still trying to be your own individual. And so there's like all these challenges that you're facing on a day in and day out basis. I think about Lisa as well, who's Kyle's beautiful wife. And you guys, her practice is insane in the hot class, and so that's a kind of the flip side of it where I know Lisa loves it. I mean, she can't get enough of it like me. So what's attractive to me is I love being challenged. I'm my best self when the screws are tightened on me. And the hot class does that for me. Yeah. There's no escaping it. There's no, I'm going to half-ass it, and maybe I'm not going to really lift my leg that high because it's evident. I mean, you're looking at yourself right in the mirror. And I know I'm my biggest critic. And so it's the best way for me to kind of check myself and say, when things get complicated, you lean in. You don't run. And the only way to get through it is to sit in the heat. And it's a great metaphor, right? It's like lean into the fire. Yeah. And when and my mind races at 10,000 miles an hour. So I have a list of all these to-do things, especially, as a business owner and a mom and a wife and all these things, there's always something I should be doing or could be doing. But when I'm in that hot room, there's nothing to do but be right there on my mat. I can't think about anything else because all I'm thinking about is not dying, not falling over, doing whatever the teacher is telling me to do. So I, again, am not making decisions, which is so freeing. And that's why the hot is really attractive to me. But I could definitely see it from Mary's side. She's like, "Nah, I have enough challenges. I don't need this as well."
Sure.
And I think that goes back to the sanctuary aspect of the hot room, that as soon as you walk in and the door's shut, it is just you and movement and breath. You're going to be challenged. You're going to be required to hold postures, but they're all beginner's postures. So it's not going to be anything. That's another brilliant thing about the hot series. It's not anything that walking into a classroom, it is nothing that anybody off the street should look at and think, well, there's no possible way my body would do that. You're never on your hands. There are no super intense back bends. There's no arm balancing. It's like, it's a fairly gentle sequence.
Well, you can make it that way.
It's a fairly, it's designed. Gentle as far as being designed for beginners.
I get it.
But part of that allows you then, so you don't have to think about like, how the hell am I going to hold myself into this? Because your body can hold yourself, standing on both legs with your hips shifted to the side. Then you're just talking about endurance and dealing with heat and calming your mind down. But I think that's one of the greatest aspects of this practice, is you realize that all I have to do is breathe, and my brain will just calm down. And you're told that your whole life, take 10 deep breaths, but it's always, you think that's nonsense. And you try it, it doesn't work, it just pisses you off more. But it does.
Yeah.
Like it's not magic, it's how you're built. Just breathe in and out through your nose, and then all of a sudden your body's like, cool.
Well, that's one of the things though that's interesting about kind of the dialogue, is they don't talk about breathing
at all.
Yeah. Right? There's no breath at all. And so it can, at least for me, it became this kind of challenge of like, okay, how am I going to breathe through this? And what is the proper way? And so that's one of the things that I've gained by coming to the hour class, is that, there is talk about breath, but also, so how have you kind of toned down your dialogue to meet kind of a broader audience? Because it is, sure. Bikram can be very like in your face, like this is, and it's, I don't see you going around like adjusting people or telling people to put their feet together, or, like some of the stuff that I've heard and seen before. So how did you get to that point?
So what I did when I went back to teaching hot, but wanted to teach it in a stronger way, the same way that I had taught Bikram, is I kind of went through the postures and the dialogue, and I thought, what are words that I would consider violent? So what are things that I think suggest you should force yourself into positions?
Mm-hmm.
And then I just softened those words. So instead of, like, come down and push and push and push and push and push, well, I'll say push your hips to the left, come down a little bit further, pull your belly in, push your hips more to the left. And so then it's less of I think it's just less choppy and forceful. I don't think I've changed so many of the words. I think that Bikram's language was so direct. Chest forward, hips forward, these are things that people understand. Suck your stomach in, people get that. Lock your knee, people get that. So I think cues like that can kind of sound a little bit more aggressive are just, they're just direct. It's just direct.
Well, and it's the repetition, right?
Yeah.
Lock your knee, lock your knee, lock your knee, lock your knee.
You're supposed to say it over and over again.
3 times.
And instead of lock your knee, I prefer lift your kneecap and engage all 4 quadricep muscles, see cramps on the front side of the thigh. It's the same thing. And I think sometimes when people lock their knee, they push it back and hyperextend.
Yep.
And then that's garbage.
For sure.
Right? So then you don't want to encourage people to do that. So I do say knees locked out when people are kicking forward, but I try not to do so much of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So Kyle, we've had a lot of comments about this anal lock conversation.
Jeez.
Ken,
why are we back there?
Ken forbid me to talk about it. No, just kidding. No, but it's a real thing. And it's, and Kyle has, and
his daughter's watching.
Right. But I'm sure that he has educated her in the ways of the hot yoga class and how critical it is and how it changes everything about your body. So can you talk a little bit about what, because you can just stand there, right? Mm-hmm. But can you talk a little bit about what you're engaging and why and how it changes your practice?
Sure. So I think in every Bikram posture, you want your belly pulled in so that your rib cage is visible. And anytime you pull your belly in, you're protecting your low back. When you're going into back bends, in addition to having the belly pulled in, you want to have your pelvic basin lifted up, right? So you're pulling your perineum up because this protects the low spine even more and it gives you more freedom as you're going back. It'll also prevent you from going back too far.
So your perineum is your beehole.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the easiest way to, and I'm borrowing this.
It's
Borrowing
in
this from
between.
the magnificent Brad Hoback.
Hi, Brad.
It's as if you have a straw in your anus
Okay.
and you're pulling air through it. Now, that's not language that I use when I'm teaching because I think, well, that's a lot for people.
We might not say anus.
So I say perineum.
It's probably not a good. Yeah.
Straw
It might
perineum.
take you out of
Yeah.
the
It might
flow of things.
disrupt
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
And the thing is that it's weird because everybody has an anus. And
That is weird.
and if you imagine that there's a
Sure.
straw in there and you pull air through it, you're pulling up through your pelvic base, and that's the most direct way to cue that, right?
Mhm.
Not maybe mine. I don't know if it's the most direct, but it seems the most obvious. Like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Now my perineum is pulled up.
Mhm.
But we do tend to be a little bit touchy with language in classes, and I think that maybe anus isn't the right.
Right. I agree.
Not for a group class.
Yeah.
Depends on the individuals.
Well, and then of course there's the whole, sexual allegation piece of it that, we want to be sensitive. We want it to be a safe space, that no one should have, words that create any type of negative emotion for them, obviously. But it's a conversation that for me, I was able to have with you. And, Kyle gave me this book that shows all about, how you're engaging through your bandhas, and it changed the practice for me. Just finding these different locks in your body and really engaging through those, because you can let them loose, but then when you can keep that engagement for the whole class, it's like twice the workout.
Yeah.
So it's critical.
Well, and it is a workout,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things, as silly as this sounds, when I'm riding 1,000 miles a day on a motorcycle, right? So I rode from here to California in one day.
Wow.
And I did, I was doing yoga on my motorcycle. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I actually was. I was like, I can just sit there. I can just sit there like this the whole time and be like all slouchy, or I can, engage and then try to do some back bends and try to, and it helped immensely, because that's not particularly comfortable. And at the same time, it also helps me focus on what it is that I'm doing at that moment, which can be perilous, I suppose, but more than anything, it really kind of protected my back.
So I see a workshop in our future, yoga for motorcyclists.
I don't know about that.
Ken, you're going to teach it.
Yeah, I don't know
It'll
about
be
that.
great.
I'm not so sure about that.
So Kyle, I'm interested to hear a little bit about what type of father do you think you are? Because I know you have 4 girls.
Mm-hmm.
So can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. I think, fatherhood. It's something that I love. I've been doing it since I was incredibly young. So,
How old were you?
19 when my first child was born. And tragically, I've not spent as much time with her as I would like to. I was really young. I lived in a different state when her mom and I lived together for about 6 months, and then her mom came back here, and I didn't come back until she was 2. So a lot of drop balls there. But as I was older, when I was 23 and remarried, 2 children came from that marriage. And that would be Emma and Sophia. They're lovely. And to them, I've tried to be a really involved and engaged father. They're lucky. They have an incredibly strong and capable mother as well. And I try to provide a safe space for them to explore who they are. And I try to listen and to be always calm and gentle with them. I don't know as if I'm entirely successful in always being calm.
I don't know what that's like at all.
Yeah. So they have grown up as I've discovered how to not be a dick. So still, when I talk to them, I try to be really, really careful about the words I'm using. And this is all fairly new for me. Only within the past few years have I started to really think about what does my language do? What does my tone do?
Tone.
Yeah.
Tone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ask my family about tone.
Yeah.
I can say the nicest things, but the tone might not be there.
You have a dickish tone when you're saying.
Oh yeah. Yep, I can for sure.
Okay.
Well, and it's interesting because my 12-year-old, she so I'll just be talking normal and she'll say, "Why are you so mad?" And I'm like, "I'm not mad. Do I sound mad?" And then I have to really check in, like, shit, I'm attaching some sort of emotion to this that I don't mean to be attaching to it.
Yeah.
And then so that's a really good way. So I think I learn a lot from them as well. And then my youngest, Alma, she's 2, and delightful. I love being an older father. So all of the other children were born when I was in my 20s. Alma was born when I was 41. It's a totally different approach. I feel no stress with her. I feel like with the other girls, there were like benchmarks. I felt like there were things that had to be done. I have to be this specific type of parent. And with Alma, I feel like, nah, dude, you just get to do your thing. And I get to hang out and be with her, and it's amazing. I work from home. So we have a nanny that comes to be with her while I'm doing my job. But then I get to be with her in the afternoons. I get to be with her in the evenings. I get to be with her in the mornings. It's been magical.
Has yoga influenced the way that you parent?
I think yoga has changed the way that I parent, because it's made me a lot more attentive, and a lot less concerned with what I think things are supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
This is how things should look. I don't care about that. Well, I mean, I do, of course, but I try not to attach to it. And I think that the yoga has really helped with how do I become a parent without making this about what I want it to be. Because raising children is really about how do I help you? I mean, so I had no real good example of parenting. My dad took off when I was young, and he was not good when he was here. And then my mom was remarried. There were some difficulties. She was sad, you know. She was with 4 kids. She was a single mom. And then I moved out when I was 15. So no real example of parenting. So I've kind of tried to figure out how to do this on my own. And I have failed quite a bit. But I think yoga has been really, really informative in how do you interact with other human beings, and your children are other human beings, and they're autonomous, and they have their own needs and desires and fears, and those are things that as a parent you really have to respond to and adapt to. It's not their job to adapt to what you want a family to look like. It's your job to adapt to who your children are. And I think that's what yoga has helped me with as far as parenting goes.
Ken, how about you? Being a dad, doing yoga.
Oh yeah, I don't know. I think the calming aspect of it. So I get wound up pretty easily. I think anybody that spent any time with me would know that. And I think the calming aspect of realizing kind of what's important afterward, because I can go to a class and be not in a great space, and then be able to go through that, you know, and come out of it different on the other side with better perspective.
Yes.
And that's been really helpful. And you know, when I tell my kids that I'm going to yoga, they're never like, "No, don't go." You know, they're like, "Okay, yeah, that seems like kind of probably a good idea at this point." So yeah, I mean, that's really where, and you know, as far as parenting style, I mean, I did not have a lot of, well, obviously we don't have any experience, but I didn't have a lot of great examples of things that I would want to do. My parents did the best that they could, for sure. But it wasn't what I didn't want to emulate that. So it took a lot of kind of, from scratch. Luckily I have a fantastic wife who's pretty level-headed and kind of the opposite of me. And you know, there are times where it's really it's great to be able for each of us to go, "Hey, what about this?" or "What about that?" You know, and not have that kind of wall up of like, "Oh, you can't say anything about my parenting," you know, but it's really kind of a collective. So it's interesting, you know, and my kids are 11 and 12 now, and they've done some yoga. Layla doesn't particularly like it. Elvis seems to kind of enjoy the challenge of it. And you know, I know we're coming into some formative years here, so I think it's going to be a real test for myself and I'm sure the kids and my wife as well. So, but it's exciting. There's nothing I'd rather do. And I like you know, got really lucky that, I work from home. I've spent an inordinate amount of time with my children, probably more than they wanted to. But I feel really fortunate for that because, my dad, I saw him every other weekend. That was pretty much the way it worked. And not through any fault of his own, that's just the way it worked out. And when we were living in another state, I saw him twice a year.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I feel pretty fortunate.
Should we shout out to our audience here?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go to the top.
Mac is watching. Jana is on. Jana's holding it down at the studio. Somebody still has to run the business. Mikey, we love you. Lori, one of our teachers. Julia's on. We love her. She's going to be on a later episode.
Maddie, that's my daughter.
That's his daughter.
Nice.
We have Zach.
Zach, who is the head coach of our baseball team.
Awesome.
Yeah,
is Zach doing yoga?
I have tried to get him to. He's kind of a weightlifter kind of
right.
guy.
Okay, Bikram was a weightlifter.
Exactly. I know. I've said it a million times, but he's going to get here how he's going to get here, or he's not at all.
All right.
We've
got Jared, who one of our members and a local realtor. We have Debbie, my sister-in-law, who's amazing, and also went through our teacher training program and is one of our assistant managers. So
nice.
Thanks everyone for being on.
Yeah, cool. For sure. I have a couple of technical questions I want to ask because there are a few things that. So Cobra, weight in hands, no weight in hands.
So
go.
Weight in hands. Weight in
Fire
hands if you're a beginner. Right. So you can use your hands as a beginner to kind of press into the mat and lift yourself up. It's more of an advanced practice to pull your hands off of the floor to not have weight into the hands. So I would say that's something you have to gauge in your body. If you're in the back bend and it feels comfortable and you can lift your hands without collapsing into the low back, I would lift your hands. I mean, if you can make the posture harder, make the posture harder.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Philosophy, thought on that?
No.
Because there's people who like vehemently go one way or the other, right? I mean, it's like, put your hands down, like don't hover your hands. Yeah. And then there's other people who are like, okay, lift your hands off the mat now. So
in a traditional Bikram class, you'd want your hands on the mat. If you're at a Bikram studio, keep your hands on the mat. They don't tolerate it. But if you're in my class, you can lift your hands up if you're an advanced practitioner.
See, and here's the thing is, can you ask for my opinion? It's probably going to be Kyle's opinion because I was vinyasa trained. And so when we opened YogaPod, I just thought it would be a great idea for me to teach the hot class, which makes sense because I had no training. We did an intensive training, but I didn't have 10 weeks of 24 hours a day of training. And so, Kyle and Gretchen, one of our wonderful teachers, between the two of them have given me all the information I have. So he's my mentor in this practice.
So you channel him.
Yeah.
So when I come to your class today at noon,
it's going to be
channeling Kyle.
Which starts next week. Gretchen and I are switching, but yes. But yeah, that's it. So and I don't think Kyle knows the impact that he's made on my teaching because he's just so casual about it, and he's like, yeah, here's the information. But everything he says is really, really impactful. And it's changed me as a teacher, which has been, and I think for people who have never taught a yoga class, it's often more meditative than actually taking a yoga class. There's something so magical about providing this experience in this space for people to have this opportunity to get out of their head and change who they are when they walk out of the classroom. And Kyle has deeply influenced me in that area. So thank you.
Thank you.
So did you find it a little bit easier knowing that you didn't really have to think about the dialogue when you went to Bikram? And then how was that transition when you weren't teaching Bikram to I can have a little more freedom here and I can say what I want? How did those two things kind of collide?
I think that the way you're trained when you go to Bikram yoga teacher training is phenomenal. And I think that the way that you're taught to cue, the dialogue is all very physical. It's very direct. There's no wishy-washy language. There's no please, or if you feel like, or what, it's just do it. Hips, chest, legs. So I think that set me up for a perfect foundation to look at the postures and what are we doing here physically? So I don't have to say the exact same things from the dialogue. You get the same straight legs if press down through the soles of the feet and lift your kneecaps. lengthen your spine, pull your belly in. So just direct physical cues. And I think that translates to my vinyasa teaching too. There's nothing esoteric or airy about my cueing. I'm not pulling in a lot of imagery. It's very direct.
There's no flowering of the kidneys.
Yeah. You know what your chest is?
Or what?
Push it towards the sky. You know what your belly is? Pull it to your spine. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, it's so interesting. And I think that's what's so magical about yoga as a practice is because you can go, I mean, we have such incredible teachers that are going to be all imagery and all, like emotional about all these, aspects of your body, which sometimes your body needs that. Sometimes that's what you're calling for. But in Kyle's classes, it's just like, do this. There's really no thought, which within that motion, that's where the emotion comes from because you're not thinking about anything else but the movements.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of power to that.
Yeah.
So we probably have 5-10 more minutes. What about kind of some other forms of yoga that you've practiced? I mean, we obviously talked a lot about hot, but can you talk about some of the other forms of yoga that you've practiced and taught?
Sure. Vinyasa. I fell in love with vinyasa the first time I took a fusion class. So that was a mixture of a vinyasa class and a Bikram class. It was my first class back after swearing off yoga studios. So when I left Bikram Yoga Old Town, I thought I'm never going to another studio again. But I did, and took a fusion class.
Were you practicing at home in between, I assume? Okay.
Yeah. So we actually had a house with a great little studio in the basement. So I just practiced by myself. I don't care. But Lisa kept encouraging me to go to Alon, which is where I ultimately ended up doing the fusion class and then teaching and doing additional training there. So I fell in love with vinyasa from the movement. I really liked the movement. I liked the idea of not being able to think because I was moving. And then Ashtanga. I found Ashtanga through Brad Hoback, who's now at Yoga Pod. Oh, you guys got to take Ashtanga classes.
It's so hard.
It's
I did it on Monday. I was like, what am I doing?
And then this morning I
wanted to go.
This morning I told Brad he was lazy because because he doesn't want to do hot classes, and he said, I haven't seen you in Ashtanga for a while. Yes. So Ashtanga, like the Bikram series, is set. You do the same thing every time. Like the Bikram series, you hold stuff. So the thing that's different about Ashtanga is, of course, there are a lot more postures, and it's vinyasa. It's where all vinyasa comes from. So you're going to do chaturangas and down dogs, but you're holding everything for 5 breaths once you go into the postures. And I liked that because in a vinyasa class, there's a lot of movement, but not a lot of strength. And in a Bikram class, there's a lot of strength, but not a lot of movement. And Ashtanga was like this perfect marriage. We're going to move, but you're also going to be strong. So you flow, hold, flow, hold. And I like that. And I think Ashtanga was probably, it was easier for me to wrap my mind around because I could memorize the postures and I could memorize the sequence, and then I could just get lost in it. So for a while, that was my bag. Now I've gone back to vinyasa and hot, mostly because Ashtanga doesn't have enough times I can take. I do run through part of the floor series or the standing series every day at home. But yeah, that's, I mean, I like the other styles of yoga quite a bit. They do not resonate with me physically and emotionally the same way the hot class does. That's a singular experience.
Yeah, I agree.
So Kyle, I am curious, what's your biggest fear? And I ask this because he's so, and here's the thing, I mean, he's so calm and he's so focused, and I want to know, like, what is Kyle scared of?
Spiders. No, I'm just kidding.
Too.
I love spiders. Yeah, I really think, I don't know if I'm afraid of a lot of things. I think what I don't want to do is go through life numb. So I think that's actually helped me embrace fearlessness, because I spent the first half of my life not feeling anything. And so it's nice to have this kind of wash of emotion and physical sensations that I can learn how to deal with. It's almost like learning how to become human. Figuring this out. Oh, I've been doing it wrong all this time. Yeah, I think did I
Yeah.
answer your question?
Yeah, brilliant. No, I think it's fascinating, and because the yoga is always, I mean, seems to be the answer for a lot of us, you know, like to work through these things. So finding that human quality within your life, not, you know, attaching a story to these emotions and sensations, has been so impactful for me. And you know, it's often things we don't talk about. You know, like it's hard when to walk up to somebody and be like, what's your biggest fear? You know, like, what are you scared of? But I think it's important to know that we all fear something. We all have something that we're trying to overcome, and that coming to your mat and finding that space where you have the opportunity to work through those things with other people, because all of us are dealing with that, and that you're not alone, and that there is a path to go wherever you need to go. And that's, again, the magic. And I've seen it in both of you. I've seen it in so many people that are part of our community. And I'm thankful to watch all that happen. So
it's an amazingly transformative practice. I think you hear it all the time and it sounds cliche. Oh, yoga will change you, but it does profoundly if you let it. I mean, I think if you come casually a few times and then think, well, that didn't do anything. But if you commit, and turn it into a discipline, it has the capacity to make you more authentic and alive.
I love being alive.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It's so fun.
I have not always, but now.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I heard, and I wish I could remember who to kind of attribute this quote to, but they said, beware of anyone who seems spiritual but has no practice. And that is that seems very true. You know, when there's nothing that you're doing, you know, on a somewhat regular basis to kind of enlarge or understand yourself, the universe, people, whatever it is, then I'm just like in my head trying to figure things out myself, and that doesn't really work.
Yeah.
So
there's an amazing Zen Buddhist teacher, Brad Warner, and I'm going to totally paraphrase here, but basically he says the same thing about seated meditation. Like if you're going to a guru or a meditation instructor or a Zen master who doesn't do the practice, then they're not a Zen master. They're not, that's a huge paraphrase. But basically the same thing. If you're not practicing, you're not equipped to teach it.
Sure.
Yeah.
That makes sense. We have surpassed the 1 hour mark.
Oh.
We are 60 minutes. We are actually 62 minutes. I'm sure we could sit here all day, but I think we all have things to do.
Like yoga.
Like yoga.
I really do
I
have
know.
to go do some yoga.
Yeah, I actually do too. So thanks everyone for tuning in. If you can go down and just share right over there, I think it is. If you can share this, that would be great. Once again, and next week, we're going to have kind of a week off. We are going to figure this audio situation out. And we are going to have it, I promise, the next time. It's going to be, we're going to be good to go. But if you can go and share this, we're going to try to get up as a podcast as well. If you have questions, comments, concerns, you can put it in the comments there. We try to check that out. You can message YogaPod on Facebook. You can also email them at
info@yogapod.com.
Okay, info@yogapod.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you in a couple weeks. Bye.
See you, everybody.